Hey everyone, NicMakesPlays here. Today I'm going with my Deep deck. Deep's always been one of my favorite decks of all time, and I'm really excited about it because it just got count them, two huge buffs. They buffed Dredgers and Sea Scarab, making them much better units in the early game, and the deck's pretty good. It's a solid tier 2 deck. So the reason I like this deck a lot, or I think it's good, is because it has ability to beat many different decks. Versus aggro, you can mulligan for early game blockers plus the healing with the anti-aggro cards. Versus mid-range, you can mulligan for some early game blockers plus cards that toss, so you can get your units big with deep, and then your units are just bigger than theirs, and you win. And versus control, you can just mulligan for all your toss cards, level up Maokai really fast, and then get rid of their, the Sonder from the deck or Trundle or whatever. So it has different ways to mulligan, different ways to adapt and beat many different decks. On top of some pretty crazy high rolls, I guess you can do with the treasures and stuff like that. Going deep really early. So let's get into it. First and foremost, I want to say there are many, and I mean many different ways to build this deck. Here's what I've went with. I feel like this version's pretty reliable. I will also, real quickly after I go up this list, say a few other things that I think are good, because I've tried many variants of this deck, and I decided to go with this one today just because it's straightforward. But I still feel like there might be a better version out there using some of the cards I'll talk about. Like, this version is not running Lure of the Deaths, but I want to try that card out more. But anyways, let's get into it. So, in short, what does this deck do? You go deep. So deep. When you have 15 cards or less, all your deep units get +3/+3. But also, when you're deep, this goes from a 0/12 to a 13/13. And then all your sea monster allies cost 4 less, which is insane. And then it copies. This is underlooked. People don't like mention this part a lot, but when you level up, copy toss allies that cost 4+ in your deck. It basically makes it so your draws are pretty much always going to be good for turn, right? When you level up the Nautilus, it makes these go back in the deck if you toss them, which are now 7/7s. These go back in the deck, which are now 6/6 with the Elusive, the draw one, they strike. And this go back in your deck. When I'm summoned, toss 2 and create 2 treasures in your deck. This is an all-win count. We'll get to this when we get to this card. I'll also mention the cards I'm not playing and why. But basically, you just go deep. And then you win. Alright, let's get into it. When I'm summoned, toss 3. This is a 3-of, no matter what deep version you run. This is a staple 3-of. 1 mana 2/1, toss 3. So toss is you self-mill yourself. You obliterate 3. This is tossing 3. Non-champion cards to buy your deck, so you can't mill champions, which is good. This card's just a good blocker. Toss 3, pretty straightforward. 3 jettison. All right, this card, I assure you more than anything, you need to run 3 this card. And I mean need. There are people out there who don't want to run this card or don't want to run 3. I don't know what's going on, but this is a 1 mana, do exactly what you want card. Like 1 mana, you do all you want to do is go deep, and this card is exactly that. The reason this is so impactful is tossing 4 is a significant amount of toss. Okay, let's say you don't run jettison, right? You'll find yourself in times where you're like 1 or 2 off deep a lot, and this can make you go deep, 2 to 3 rounds earlier. Every round you don't have the toss cards. That's a whole other just 1 draw, and that's all you have to go deep. This card allows you to go deep so early. And another reason I think you need 3 no matter what is how important it is in the control matchup. The way you win the control matchup or the mirror match too is you want to go deep first. So versus control, you want to go toss as fast as possible with Maokai, get Nautilus going, stuff like that. And then in the mirror, it's who goes deep first. So if you're not running 3 jettison, you're gonna have a way worse time versus control, which makes you lose a lot of perks this matchup spread for this deck. This deck's really strong versus on a Trundle, the SI Freyord, and it's because of this, right? So if you don't run this, you're just hurting one of your best matchups and kind of lose a huge perk of playing deep. And also you'll lose the mirror. So 3 jettison's insane. If you already are deep, you can use this after you play Shipwreck Order to get the treasures, or you can just use the level Maokai. But very good. 1 mana, do exactly what you want. This speeds your deck up so fast. It's so good. 3 Sea Scarab. This card was one of the buff cards along with Dredgers, so this used to be a 1/1, now it's a 2/1. This patch. 2/3. This card is insane. This is like one of the best cards in the deck now. If not, I don't know. I don't say the best, but it's one of them. 2 mana 2/3. When another ally dies or last breath, toss 1. So a 2/3 for 2 is one of the best allies you can have in Runeterra because it blocks 2/1s. So it helps a lot against aggro because they lose like a bunch of their units if they attack. There are 2/1s like Legion Saboteur and stuff like that. This card's amazing. It helps you get extremely fast. If you have multiples, you can just play it and have it see things die, like Dredgers die, Thorian Toad die, Deadbloom. You just kind of have it chilling, and then it'll make you go deep really fast. But it's also a sea creature, So when you go deep, it gets +3/+3. So it's just a 2 mana 5/6 that helps you go deep. It's kind of the perfect card, and it's also discounted off Nautilus as a bonus. So it costs 0 because Nautilus discounts by 4. So yeah, it costs 0 when you have Nautilus out. Very insane. It just fits so many curves. Helps you go deep so much easier. And there are tons of times where the pressure it emits is huge in the turn you go deep, where it's you have this in the field, you're about to go deep, like 2 of these on the field, you're about to go deep. And then you go deep and you have 2 5/6s on the field. Whereas without this card, you'd have to like start developing bigger units. Like, okay, I'm deep. Now I play my Devour. Now I play my Best Allied. Now I play my Shadow Quarter. But since here you have immediate pressure with going deep because you already had, like, say, 2 of these on the field, you have immediately 2 5/6s. Well, spending any mana. Because if you go deep, people could try and open attack you or whatever before you're kind of behind on tempo, just trying to catch up by playing your deep creatures. But this time you already have them on the field chilling. So there you go. Thorn Toad. I like this card a lot. I feel a lot of times when I have struggle versus deep is because they have multiples of these that kind of ruin your attacks. It's pretty much what you want. What you need is to go deep with this deck, obviously. But it also, 1/4 is decent blockers, again, versus the 2/1, like, aggro decks. And having you heal, a lot of times you take too much damage in the early game in this deck, and this is kind of like, healing, and goes deep. Works pretty well, right? So I like to read this a lot. You could go to 2, though, if you want to add other cards I talk about later. 3 Vile Feast. This sounds pretty needed. Drain 1 from units in my Spiderling. Just a generic card. One of the most used Shadow Isle cards of all time. Used for healing, the ping 1 damage things. You can use it on Zoe. All kinds of stuff. It also is good to get rid of barriers with the Shen Jarvan decks around. It pops the barrier. Very good. It gives you a blocker, heals, and can kill things. Alright, 3 Devlin Wonder. This is 3 of Essential. You need this no matter what. 3 mana 3/2 lifesteal. When I'm summoned, toss 3. Pretty straightforward. Helps, it heals. So in the early game, you'll be more reliable. You're not guaranteed, but you're more reliable to make it to the mid game where you're deep, or the late game where you're deep and win because of lifesteal. And it helps you toss, which you need to do. So very, very important card. Where are we? Jaw Hunters. This card is great. When I'm summoned, create a random sea monster in hand. There are times it doesn't feel like great. There are times where it feels insane. I think right now it's in a really, really good spot in this deck. You can use it to get rid of all kinds of threats, like Aphelios, Twisted Fate, Lucian, whatever. Just all kinds of stuff. And then it creates sea monster in the hand. So the cool thing is I actually like getting Sea Scarab off this because this is a new sea creature. Just because it's so cheap. There are turns where it's like turn 5 and you'll play Jaw Hunters and it'll give you Sea Scarab. And like, oh, okay, that fits my curve, and I can play Jaw and Sea Scarab, and then Sea Scarab gets to see this die, which helps you mill. That's one of the reasons it's even stronger now, is you get to see a combat trade, and then Sea Scarab mills you. So very good, very good card. 3 Slardox. So I'm on off this card because I do like other options like Lure of the Depths and stuff, but I kept this deck pretty standard. So here's 3 Slardox. Round start, toss 1. If you're deep, destroy me a 7-round sea monster. So 3 mana for a sea monster, besides Sea Scarab, is really powerful. The lowest rolls is Sea Scarab's the worst, it's a 5/6. But then besides that, you have Beast Below, and you have Devour the Death, which are both just 7/7s. But you also have huge high rolls where you can hit Shipwreck Quarter is 1. So when this is summoned, it puts 2 treasures in your deck. These are like really broken cards we'll get into later. And it puts in their deck before the draw, because it's on round start. So you can actually just draw these for turn when this is summoned off Slardox. If you have 2 Slardox, and then the first one puts Shipwreck Quarter, the next one can toss a treasure. And you get a treasure and you get a draw. So it's really good. The other high roll, you don't main deck this, but which you could somewhat, but Tear the Tides, 8 mana, 6/5, obviously +3/+3, 9/8 with deep. Sea Monster allies all are fearsome. When attacks give enemies -2/-0. This is usually the biggest high roll. It's pretty insane. Just way to win the game. Having Slardox gives you access to this card. Obviously, you can't choose when you get it, but it's very powerful when you do. So 3 mana that helps. So Slardox got 3 mana that helps you go deep and potential summon this along with the other sea monsters. So one reason I like Slardox is it's insane versus control. This is exactly what you want versus control. The slower their opponent's deck is, the better this card is. Against aggro, you kind of can't play this a lot of time in the early game because you would just take too much damage because you're playing 3 minutes on a landmark instead of having blockers. But versus like Shadow Freyward, like Lysandra, Nivea, whatever, this card is very powerful because they usually just pass. They have Hands of Avalanches and Vile Feasts and Whales and stuff like that, like Ice Shard. And you play this, and the earlier you play this, the better because it helps you go deep every single turn. So you want to get off right away. to get the most amount of toss out of it before you go deep. And they just can't use like their avalanche and stuff on this, and you're just going deep, and then turn where you hit deep comes, you paid 3 mana essentially to help you go deep and get a huge sea creature. So very good. All right, Maokai, essential, amazing. Each round, the first time you play an ally, toss 2 and summon a sapling. So there's a few things this card adds to the deck. One is it helps you go deep. The tossing the 2 and getting the sapling helps you go deep. Now with Sea Scarab, it's way, way better. Because not only do you toss 2 from the sapling, but Sea Scarab gets to see the sapling die, which tosses another. And that's 3 for the turn. 2 from Maokai and 1 from the Sea Scarab. Seeing the sapling die. And that's every single turn you keep getting these saplings. So if you have Sea Scarab plus Maokai, you're just going to go deep extremely fast. The other thing it does is level up. So when your units have died, or you toss cards 25 times, so it's like they're both combined, the tossing plus units dying, which is easy to do with the sapling and the Sea Scarab and all the knowing. This is how you win against control, and I guess a lot of other matchups. It's just an alternate win con that puts your opponent on a huge clock. When I level up, obliterate the enemy deck, leaving 4 non-champion cards. This leaves it so they have 4 cards left in their deck, and they're non-champions, so they can't shuffle cards back in their deck to not deck out. You get an alt win con through making them deck out. Very strong against, again, the Shadow Fair type stuff. If they didn't have Lysandra, you win. This deck's weakest matchup is Lee Sin by far, but the one way you do win is hope they don't draw Lee Sin, try and level Maokai, and then get rid of Lee Sin from your deck, and you can win. This puts your opponent in extremely hard spots. A lot of decks can't function without cards in the deck, like Twisted Fate decks. A lot of cards are draw cards, and they'll just deck out. Makes it like Stalk of Shadows worse, River Shapers worse, stuff like that. And you can kind of just stall. Like very deep, it's pretty hard for them to beat a board of huge sea creature monsters in Nautilus, so you can kind of just chill for 4 turns and you win. So very good alt win con. Helps you go deep in the early game. Gives you win con in the late game. This helps control the board and removes threats in the mid game too. So very good card. Very good card. Toss 3, heal always 3. This doesn't heal Nexus, just in case anyone thought it did. But the cool thing you can do with this is combat trades are the best way to get value. It's not a very good card, but you have to run it because it's a champ spell. But also it stops like Ravenous Flock and Noxious Guillotine because your units are damaged if you heal them to full. All right, 2 salvage. Sometimes I play 3, sometimes I play 2. Sometimes I play 3 salvage and then 1 Abyssal Eye, but this version making it very straightforward. Toss 2, draw 2. This is very good. This is what you went to the mulligan for, along with Jettison and stuff. And Saradox against control. The faster you go deep, the better this deck is against control. Against a mid-range deck, like let's say like Shen Jarvan, you will have a middle ground of like half blockers and like half going deep because you have like a medium pacing of time. I guess the way I put it is that it depends on how fast their deck is. If the deck is super fast like aggro, you want only like blockers and healing. If the deck is like mid-range pace, you want half blockers, half going deep with like salvage and jettison. And if it's control, you just want full, like a slow deck, you just want full going deep. But yeah, this is really fast way to go deep and refuel. A lot of times you'll lose cards on hand because you're just using like your Thornthrones and jettisons and stuff to go deep, and then this refuels plus goes deep. This is one of the ways you go deep really fast. And it's good in the mirror because a lot of passing happens. So very good. Well, passing happen, I mean like you don't control the board, you just care about going deep. So very good to go deep. All right, Abyssal Eye. Sometimes I run 2, sometimes I run 1. Depends on how I'm feeling that day. I'll put 2 just to be straightforward. So perks of this card is it's a 5 mana with deep to 6/6. It's really good because it costs 5. It's important because you play Maokai in 4. You need to have creatures. Like you want many creatures to play with Maokai, and we do have a lot, but sometimes you don't have them. So just having the extra units you play with Maokai, like the turn after Maokai, turn 5, is very important. So you play this on turn 5, you can strike, draw a card. This is the only way you win when you are deep. The alt win con of having 6/6 elusive strikers are very important. When Nautilus is on the field, this costs 1, which is crazy. So when it's discounted by Nautilus, it only costs 1. So you can play on turn 8, you Nautilus and then this, or you can just play Nautilus the next turn, play a bunch of 2 of these, whatever. You can get these off Jaw Hunters too. If you do run Lord of the Desk, it costs 0 with Nautilus. So on turn 7, you can play this for 0, and play like Nautilus and like the multiple Abyssal Eyes that turn, which you could play. I'll go over Lord of the Desk after this deck, real quick. But the downside of this card is they hush it. It kind of feels bad because then they block it, and you paid 5 mana and just get blocked. Sharp Sight also is a good blocker against it when you're not deep yet, like in the mid game. But overall, you need at least 1 or 2 for the access for the elusive. It also is surprisingly good at blocking Zoe and Ezreal when you're deep, or even if you're not deep, you just play this and then it kind of screws over their strategy. So very good. Alright, 2 Withering Wail. I think this deck needs healing, or some form of healing. A lot of times what happens is, even when you have a good early game, you still take a decent amount of chip damage, and then you need the healing later. Withering Wail is obviously a blowout versus aggro, versus Raven Jinx and stuff like that, like, you know, Pirate aggro and certain hands with spiders. Not really Pirate aggro, but certain hands versus certain aggro decks, you know, mostly against discard aggro. They have a lot of 1 health units, and you can ping, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them away, and then heal 3, and they lose their whole board, and you heal 3, so very important. But yeah, I do think you need some form of healing. These are good too, because you have the Thorny Toad, the Vile Feast, the Dead Bloom Wanderer. So I like this a lot. People run different amounts of Withering Wail, but I think you need 2. You just don't want to run... I ran 3, but then you just have them versus SF Freyr, and it's awkward. That is a winning matchup, but one of the ways to make it a lot worse and closer to even matchup is by running the 3 Withering Wails. They can still beat you. But yeah, very good to heal and get rid of aggro openings and clear units and stuff. It also pings barriers for Jarden. Anyways, Devour. This is one of the most straightforward, best cards in the deck. Play Obliterate an enemy with less health than me, so you can obliterate things with 3 or less health. But when you're deep, it's 7/7, so this is basically how you remove all the threats, is you just keep playing these down, removing all their units. Extremely powerful card, just a unit that just banishes something is insane. And then also, off Nautilus, it only costs 2, because it's discounted by 4. So you're just playing these 7/7s that banish one of their key cards, multiple times a turn. It's pretty powerful, so very good. And also get shelved back in deck with Nautilus, so that's amazing. Next is Nautilus. This is kind of one of the main keys of the deck. Most decks can't answer Nautilus because it becomes the 13/13 with Tough and Fearsome. You tackle them, it kind of forces to block. So I don't run Atrocity, but because I went for consistency, and I feel I'll go right into Atrocity in a bit. But they do think you have Atrocity, or at least you have to respect it. So they have to block Nautilus, which since it is Fearsome, it's usually being blocked by an important unit because they can't just like chump block it with the weenie unit, like a 2 or less attack unit. So they have to block the attack, or they go to 7. You can just Atrocity as the Nexus, which you could run yourself. We'll go over that too. But very good. Stacks your deck to make amazing draws for the next few turns. It makes all your sea creatures cost less, but also is the best champ spell in the entire game. Believe it or not, there's a lot of good champ spells in Runeterra, like Lucian's Pursuit, Mystic Shot, all kinds of good stuff, but I think this is the single best. So normally, it just stuns an enemy, right? We don't main deck that, it's not very good. But if you have Nautilus, place that unit into the enemy deck. So basically, it's 4 mana, fast, shuffle a card to the enemy deck, or unit in the enemy deck. That's insanely strong. It's like one of those versatile cards. It just completely removes the card from the field and puts it in the deck. Yeah, having a 13/13 with Tough and Fearsome backed up by this to remove whatever threat they have is very powerful. It's one of your main forms of removals. A lot of times the game comes down to, they try to beat you through Nautilus, and the answer is like, oh, do they Riptide or not? And if you do, then you just win. Shuffle the guy away and you win. So, very powerful card. And last but not least is Shipwreck Hoarder. This card is a lot better than Lost Riches in pretty much every single way. So, I'll go over Lost Riches too in a bit, but for now, this is Shipwreck Hoarder. So, it's a 7 mana 10/8 when it's deep. It helps you go deep because what you can do is when I'm summoned, toss 2 and create 2 treasures in the deck. So if you're only 2 or less away from deep, you can play this. It dips into deep for a second, and even though it adds treasures in your deck, putting you back to 17 in deck, so you're not like deep because you need 15 to be deep, you hit deep for a second. So you're deep now, and you get all the deep perks, and just know that this can, if you have 2 less cards in your deck, you can toss and go deep with this. Very good. Puts your treasure in your deck. I think this deck needs, and I mean needs, access to treasures to be good. Whether it's Lost Riches or Shipwreck Hoarder, but Shipwreck Hoarder is way better. So you want 1 Shipwreck Hoarder, just the 1, to get access to the treasures, because they are not win con. That helps you win all kinds of games. This card shuffle back in your deck. So if you mill this card, like you toss it with like Jettison or Salvage or whatever, then you play Nautilus, it goes back in your deck because of Nautilus's level effect. Whereas Lost Riches doesn't, and you lose access to the treasures. Also, Lost Riches is 4 mana, go farther away from deep because it puts 2 treasures in your deck. And it's not in a body, it just costs 4 mana. This is 7 mana 7/5, already decent. Becomes a 10/8, which is really good. And then it helps you go deep because I said you can go deep when you toss 2. And this card is just, for many reasons, better than Lost Riches. Again, because Lost Riches is 4 mana, doesn't affect the board. It makes you go further away from deep actively, and it doesn't get shuffled back in your deck so you might lose access to the treasures. It's more bricky too. I know this card could be Ricky too because it's 7 cost, but it's usually good. And it's discounted off Nautilus and all kinds of stuff. Anyways, let's get to the treasures. So this card randomly puts 2 of these treasures in your deck. It's just completely random which ones they put in. Keelbreaker. If I'm tossed, draw me instead. So this is good to use Jettison after you went deep. It gives you a reason to, make Jettison more reliable or not beat that card after you go deep. If I'm tossed, draw me instead. Deal 5 to all units. Include your own units, yes, but mass removal is usually fine because your units will live because they have huge health stats from deep. Like Devour and Chipper Quarter and stuff will live through this, like Nautilus. And then this can just clear a lot of units. A lot of times you use this just to clear like 1 unit. As funny as that sounds, like if their only threat is Ezreal, then you'll play this on your field, just get rid of Ezreal, but it gets rid of their win con and then you win. So you can also clear white boards in general good. Player Meg, probably overall the best one. If I'm tossed, draw me instead, summon 3 Vicious Plate Remegs. So this summons 3 5/5s with Fearsome, but when you're deep, they're 8/8s. So it summons 3 8/8 with Fearsome. 5 mana, summon 3 8/8s with Fearsome is insane. That's, 24 damage, right? You just, win, basically, at that point. A lot of times your field's clogged and you summon only 2, because you only have space for 2, and that's still insane. 5 mana, summon, 2 8/8s with Fearsome, 16 damage with Fearsome. It's insane. This card's amazing. And then Treasure Trove, the RNG card of, I guess Legendary Runeterra, or there's some RNG cards. This is the poster, the face of the RNG. Create 5 random cards in hand. That means just completely random the whole game. You can get anything from a useless 1-drop, Disguise Ascend, to do 15 to all enemy cards. They cost 0 and are fleeting. From Toss, draw me instead. So, create 5 random cards in hand, and then you kind of just play them all. You really want to play this on your attacking turns, because a lot of times you have units or combat tricks, like decisive maneuver, stuff like that. I mean, it's all random, but you know what I mean. On average, it's a lot better on your offensive turn. But it can dig you for heal or removal, whatever you need. Kind of just an alt-win con. Gives you reach to a lot of things. Alright. So that's the deck. Now I'm going to briefly go over what cards you could add in. Fading Memories is okay, not as good as Jettison. Pick a follower, create an ephemeral copy of hand. People compare the two because they're cheap. They're both cheap thingies. But this card requires you to already have Dredgers to even mill. And using it on a sea creature is okay in late game, but usually you have tons of sea creatures, so it's not like the late game. You usually find late game. You need more for the early game. And I just feel it's only really good on Dredgers, and Thorny Toad is okay. But you still have to pay for the cards again. And keep in mind that it's just dead a lot of time you don't have the cards you need. It's good on Jaw Hunters, because it's going to challenge something anyway, but Jaw Hunters isn't really a card you need to be copying, because A, you already have a lot of sea creatures, and B, it's just not helping you deep in the early game, which is more important than getting extra sea creatures and challenging something. So this card's, it's okay, but most people end up cutting it. Then we have Glimpses in some builds, but I wouldn't run it just to draw 2. It's you need your blockers in this deck, or you'll take too much damage. Higher Gun's good. Higher Gun's really good. If I'm summoned, grant the strongest enemy vulnerable. This is just really good in the early game. You play it on turn 2, hooks their 2/1, kills it, then it blocks something else the next turn. It just helps you control the early game. A lot of times you're struggling in the early game. It's amazing. And in the mid game or late game, you can just hook something like a threat, and then have a sea creature kill it, like Devour or Shipper Quarter or whatever, or Nautilus. So this card's very strong. It's a high consideration. Stalking Shadows, it's okay. Pick a follower from the top 4 cards in your deck, draw it. So it helps you go deep by 1, just to draw a card. But then at the same time, this can also get you ephemeral copies of Dredgers and Thorny Toad. So I like this card a bit more than Fading in general, if you had to pick one, because you get to dig for what you need. You don't have to already have it in your hand, and it helps you go deep by 1. But it gives you 6 mil here. If you need healing, it gives you healing here, plus 6 mil. The ephemeral of this and the regular one gives you 4 mil plus 4 heal. So it's decent. But I don't have space for it, and I think it's you don't need it a lot of time too. All right, Lord of the Death. Okay, this card I'm very high on. I think this card might actually be insane. I just haven't tested it enough to feel the confidence saying that. But reduce the cost of sea monster allies everywhere by 1. Draw a sea monster. So this card used to be okay, but now that you have Sea Scarab, you have way more sea creatures, which means you're getting more value over time with this because you're playing more discounted cards. These cost 1, so turn 1 you can play Dredgers. Turn 2 you pass. Turn 3 you play Lure the Death into 2 Sea Scarabs or something. It really pays off a lot later in the game too, in the mid game. You play this on 4, strike 1, draw a card. That's pretty big for 4. It's good for elusive. Playing this on 5 helps control the board a lot in the mid game because 4/4 banish card on 5. That's pretty good. Then later in the game you have Nautilus. This costs 0 now, so on turn 7. instead of being like, okay, turn 7 Nautilus pass and giving them one chance to open attack and try and kill you before you start winning with deep. You go immediately turn 7, like play Abyssal Eye, and you win the game. Like it's too much for your opponent to deal with. So it kind of makes you win a turn earlier. You know, every card discount is good. It costs 2. This costs 1, which is really insane. With the Lure of the Death, like turn 8, you just play like Nautilus and then this. Or you already have Nautilus and you're just playing multiples of these for cheap, which you already could do, but very good. And it helps you draw sea creatures too, which is nice. So this card's good, I think. But I just kept it straightforward now. The main real card I want to talk about is Atrocity. Everything else is whatever. Okay, so this is probably the biggest consideration in this deck. So why don't I play this card? I feel that this deck's already good when, like, this card's only good when you're already winning. I don't ever feel like it wins you games you shouldn't already be winning. Because this deck's already bricky by nature, by having the sea creature. You need like a mixture of the sea creatures, going deep, the blockers, and the healing for certain matchups. And this card's just a brick through every single hand. So you'll lose a lot by just having a dead hand or like not being able to do anything because you have Atrocity. And you're already going to win the games where the deck works successfully, right? So if you play this, it only helps you when you're already winning. So, but just to make you lose it more often because you're in a brick and you're losing when you could have just won if you had a normal hand. Another thing is that it's unreliable. Let's say you play 1 copy. If you toss it, you lose access to all win con, Atrocity, right? So it inclines you to run 2 copies. So if, in case you toss one, you probably still have the other one. And then you're making it even more bricky because now you have 2 Atrocities in your deck. And also it's a trade-off, right? Whenever you add a card, you have to cut a card. So yeah, Atrocity, you need to cut a card. These are all very important, and I explained why I think they're all huge in this deck, along with all the other considerations for the cards in the deck. But if you run Atrocity, it's like a lot of times it'll lose you games you should have won if you just had a normal hand. But the games you would win with it, you'd already win if you just were deep anyway. I do still think this card is probably one of the next cards I would add to the deck. And I don't know if it's worth it, but one thing that's a perk is that this deck loses really hard to Lee Sin and Tom Soraka. But this gives you a way to win. Like, yes, Lee Sin has the 9 stuff, but you can try making tap under it, and it just gives you a threat. Like, you'll have to have the 9 in the hand still. So I feel this can make some of your really bad matchups that are previously unwinnable to, like, still losing, but winnable. Like, you can win every few times first time with Atrocity. The issue is, like, is it worth hurting the rest of the deck just to win, make some unwinnable matchups slight losing instead of hard losing, because you'll lose most of them anyway? I don't know. This card is just, it's whatever. I mean, you can add it in and people like it. It is nice that when you swing with Nautilus one time, or something one time, they have to always respect Atrocity. But they respect it anyway. At least you're playing on ladder where they can't see your deck list. They have to play on Atrocity anyway, so like it gets a lot of value just by existing, not being in the deck. So very good. Tear the Tides. It's too expensive. It can get hushed, palmed, whatever, but it's still like a good card to get off Solid Rocks. And not a bad consideration. The one perk of this card as a reliable finisher is that Nautilus puts it back in the deck. So if you were to mill this card, like unlike Atrocity, where if you mill it, it's gone as a finisher, this is a reliable finisher because if you mill it, then Nautilus will put it back in the deck when you level it up, and you'll always have this as a finisher reliably for the most part. You can still toss it again after Nautilus levels up, but it should mostly be in the deck if you don't toss after that, and it's a reliable finisher, but it's too expensive, and it can be stopped. Oh, the last card was Lost Riches, I guess. Okay, this card is troll. Please don't play this. I know people keep asking to play it. I've been playing this deck on stream a lot all week, and people keep saying to play it. Let's just theory it. All right, 4 mana, so you're already really far behind. This is a deck that can't afford to just do things like this. Like, to put treasure. People are like, oh, you put treasures in your deck, you have like all win cons. But you have that Ship Recorder, but it's a built-in engine card, right? Lost Riches, pay 4, go further away from deep. So you're already. So the reason Salvage is like somewhat redeemable is because it helps you go deep, which you need to do to win. You need to go deep as fast as possible to make up for lost time. And it helps you refuel. So, you have cards, you can refuel, and then this card also, you play with idle mana or you have idle time. You go deep, and the next turn you gain field control in the mid game and you win. This just puts 2 treasures in your deck. Like, we draw a treasure, but you have to have a second one for that. So it's just the main part is there are need to draw create. You put your there are need to draw. You create treasures in the deck. You put your treasures in the deck. But you actively are paying 4 mana, which you can't afford in the early game, to go farther away from deep. You can only use Salvage after you've somewhat stabilized like the blockers. Then you go deep, and then you start winning. This card makes it so you stabilize the blockers a little bit, then you play Lost Riches, then you're still so far away from deep. You were farther away than you were before, and then you're just not going to go deep, and then you lose. It's a brick. At least Salvages you draw cards to help go deep and unclog your hand or draw into what you need cycle. This card is just a brick. You add treasures in your deck, yes, but you don't even draw it doesn't even guarantee you draw the treasures. Like, you just put them in your deck, hope you toss them, even though you just made yourself go farther away from deep, which is hurting you a lot at this point. And you just hope you randomly win. And I don't even see like why you would need this. It's nice to have the one chip cord to get access to treasures. People are like, oh, matchups you like lose, you play like Lee Sin and try to get the treasures. Like, well, they have deny, and these still wouldn't win the game if they went through against Lee Sin a lot of times. So I feel 4 mana in the early game where you can't afford to lose that tempo where you're being pressured and you'll just die if you play this. Slash creates a lot of dead hands. Slash makes you further away from deep, which is insane that even after that people want to consider it. But I'll just guess we'll go over Shipwreck Quarter. It's discounted. I went over all the million perks. It helps you go deep. It's discounted. It shows back your deck so you don't lose access to treasures. It's just there's tons of perks to this card. This is like a late game card you play and it has a body on the field, whereas Lost Riches is just 4 mana. Like to even play like a match this way, it's 4 mana, then 5 mana for a treasure. So you're paying 9 mana for the treasures regardless. If you even get to them, because again, you're very far away from deep the turn you play this card, and yeah, I mean, it depends when you put it, but you're very far away from deep, and if you even hit them, like that's a whole other story. So yeah, I'm not a fan of this card. Makes you probably deep. I made my points. Let's get into the games. Alright, we're playing against elites. This is Garen Jarvan. It's a lot of buffs to the elite deck this season. So this is a medium pace deck, right? So versus aggro, you keep a lot of healing and blockers. So like Vile Feast, you keep versus aggro. Versus control, you only want the tossing. Like versus control, you just want all these. First, this is mid-range, textbook mid-range. So go around the deck. It's kind of board-based. You need to pick a medium-paced hand. So I don't want to keep Jettison. This is like Hyper Mill, and you want like blockers. I don't want to keep Salvage either. I had to pick between these two because you need blockers in medium-range hand. You need blockers, but you also need one of these cards to go deep. So I'm gonna pick Slaughter Dogs because Slaughter Dogs has huge payoff. What happens with Slaughter Dogs is you get it's 3 mana for when you go deep a huge sea creature, and once that happens, this deck can't deal with the huge stat against. Usually, it's the deck that has the good stat against, but against deep we have the stats here. So very good. We'll totally attack here, I think, just because the longer we wait, the more we could put a challenger and kill a card for free. I'm not sure if that's completely right because that could block something more important. But we should play Battlesmith this turn, which he's not attacking with at all, so that doesn't matter. Alright, we'll play Sea Scarab here. Very good. We can open attack right now before he plays a buffed unit. Get 2 damage in. If he plays Sharp Sight, he's just behind on tempo and it's not even a good Sharp Sight. Okay, this guy with the nuts. Let's see what happens here. So Sardox, the earlier you play it, the better. You want to start tossing right away. It just sits there over time. We'll get payoff in a bit. This is going to be a close game. This deck is like make or break on drawing Battlesmith. If you draw Battlesmith, then you're popping off. If you're not, then you're not really doing that much with elites. And he drew 2. So it's going to be crazy. Also, his deck might be full prismatic, and he has the this guy's styling on us. He's dedicated. He's flexing with the matching board and everything. Let's see how this goes. Alright, so we play Dredgers as a blocker. Play this first because we're going to block no matter what. And then we can pick between these based on what we want to do. I'll probably play Jaw Hunters. This has that. Okay, so he's just pressuring us a lot. I think we have to play Jaw Hunters. So something unfortunate here is that he can hook this to the front, so we can't see these die. Okay, he's not doing it. Okay, so he should have hooked this to the... Oh, he wants to kill this, that's fine. So just gets to see these die, which is nice. We'll take 4, because we need to get some kind of healing off from the Dead Bloom. This will just be that. We can't lose all our blockers. We full block everything. He has 5 units, we have 0. We have no control over next attack, and we lose. That was a good attack, but no matter what, let's do it here. I think we just have to leave these here anyway. Even if we try to kill him, he still has another one. The one perk we have is his low and scene. Hope he doesn't have Garen. If he has Garen, we're screwed, but if not, we're fine. Ooh, that's a great draw. I wish we could play it right now. We have more pressing matters. So, as you see, Sea Scarab's broken. Not broken, but really good. And we're already 6 away from deep. Just from that interaction alone. So, here we're already going to go deep with the Jettison. This would become a 5/6, which is why I said it was so good, because it gets buffed in mid. Okay, this guy just had the best sound of all time. Alright, well, we're going to go deep. This becomes a 5/6, and then now we get the Slaughter Dogs. A lot of this game will be determined off what we get by Slaughter Dogs. Kind of RNG. If we get Shipwreck Order, we're in an amazing spot because Treasures could Keel Breaker his whole field or something, or get Player Megs. If we get Tear the Tides, we're in an amazing spot because it's a 9-8. I mean, anything we get besides Sea Scarab's good, but that was like the weaker one. Just because it can potentially die to combat tricks, but it's fine. All right, if we can get Maokai going here, we're almost level for Maokai. We're actually probably gonna play Maokai this turn, and then he'll be leveled after this combat. All right, we'll just have to take this. His deck doesn't have reach without pursuit, so this is totally fine. He loses trades here. I'm sure he has some kind of trick. He's supposed to level Garen. We're probably fine to win here. So 23. He probably wants to single combat something. We could be greedy and play this into this to get the mill, but there's no point. We can put reverse order so we guarantee the Maokai level up. This will put him on a clock, a 4-turn clock. It's crazy we're even in this spot because his hand was so good. Soft Jaw Hunters, 4 mana 7/7, pretty good, right? Alright, so he might have single combat, which would be terrifying. We know he can't use Pursuit this turn, so he has 2 mana left. Yeah, I'm really afraid of single combat, because that would just kill like our main unit here, and then he'll get the rally. So I'm hoping for no single combat. He would have to have the perfect hand at single combat, like dub 2 of these, Garen, all the Kirk. Okay, so he just has, like, I know I keep saying this, but this is literally the best elite hand I've ever seen. I sure hope we win, because it's crazy it's even this close, determining, or since this is what's going on. All right, I think we're gonna need the blockers here. Well, no, we can just attack with this. Like, his attack's not even that threatening. Let's hope he doesn't have sharp sight also. Come on, man. Well, let's attack first, draw, and see what we get. We just need to stabilize and play Nautilus. Nautilus is bigger than this, and then we'll win. Okay. Dang it. Not Nautilus. This is good, though, get a sea creature. Alright, so luckily we waited on Devour. Wow. Can banish that. This is great because it has a Challenger to kill things, but also a Last Breath ability. Cradle in random elite in hand. It's a lot of steam. Single. Okay. We're not in like the worst spot ever. Again, surprising. So he's whittling away our blockers. We need to block this, or else it'll be to a point where he can just full swing and we won't have really anything to do about it. Probably just open attack. I mean, it depends what he gets. this is RNG kind of what he got off the Swiftwing Lancer. If it's big like Cithria, we'll lose. If it's small like the small Cithria, the 1-drop Cithria. If Cithria the Bold, we'll lose. If it's just like a normal elite, like a small 1-drop Cithria the Bold, will be fun. Not the best draw, not the worst draw. He only has 2 cards left in his deck. We have healing, and we really need to use it. We'll save it because we need to focus on using our mana for field control right now. We could play this. This gives some of the sapling around start, so we have tons of blockers. This could be good. It's going to be Maokai plus one of these. I'm not sure which one yet. Probably Slaughterdox. So we only have 4 cards left in our deck. We can't toss champions, so we're guaranteed to get Nautilus or Maokai. We have 1 Maokai and 3 Nautilus in the deck. We just need to draw Nautilus and we win. Because we can do Nautilus. Yeah, so we'll play this because we can do Nautilus into 0-cost beast below. Which is really insane. This game is starting to shape up to be pretty good for us, actually. We might actually win, but I don't know what he has. So I didn't see. I don't think that was the one created off. That wasn't the one created off the thing, the Swiftwing. So it would say so, and it was all from the left side. So he drew a return. See, the downside is this can't block anything. That well, it has regeneration. Yeah. We'll play this as a blocker. Oh, see, I told you guys. It was all about which one we got on here. Okay, so we're good to like not die here, right? I guess we should play it safe. Yeah, there's no reason to do this. I want to get the 0-cost one next turn, but playing it safe here is great. We have these amazing traits. We could probably just maybe even take this and go for full combat traits. Never mind, we can't do that. So we get first action next turn, and we should just draw a Nautilus. And we can afford Nautilus plus Withering Wail to live, which is pretty important. I guess we should kill the bigger ones. Alright. Not looking bad. Not looking bad. Having this die is also fine, because we might low roll. We have one Maokai, 3 Nautilus in deck. If we get the one Maokai, it would suck, but if we drew the one Maokai that, like, just on the field, we just have a dead card. But we'll draw the Nautilus here and win the game, hopefully. If I didn't draw a Nautilus here, I would be tilted. Alright, so here with Nautilus, now we can finally start blocking the Scare without losing all our units. We have Withering Wail to heal. We're still at a decent amount of health too, 6. Not like a lot, but enough. And then now our deck gets replaced-ish, and we get... Oh no. Oh no, it's the best draw we've seen. Well, he loses if he doesn't block this. I just can't attack with these because then he'll just block them here. We need to have more blockers than him. So 6 becomes a 15. Jeez. This is still fine though. Like he plays this. Okay. That's fine. It's like fine but not fine. One of these can block one of these. This can still block this, and then this can block this. I guess that's fine. That was an insane draw, but again, even though he had like the best opening ever and drew that for turn, we're still probably fine. And we're drawing good for turn, hopefully, to see creatures. If we draw Riptide, we're also in insane spot. Alright. Yeah, if we draw Riptide, we can just shuffle this away. That's not a champion spell. So we draw another Nautilus. Alright. So now these are come to a point where they probably have to trade, right? Which is fine, because then we win. Because we have more cards in there. That's a good draw. He plays like a unit, probably. Maybe he did draw a second Garen. There's no way he was second Garen. I just don't believe it. Just don't believe it. Okay. This is our best Withering Wail here. You probably can seize at this point, which is insane. This is a good game. I respect his deck was off his map. Alright, let's see what we get. Let's see what we draw. Nice. I'm talking about. Didn't matter what we got, we're gonna win no matter what, but that's very powerful. And he decked him out. Wow. That was a good game. That was a really good game.